Hi, boys and girls. I'm going to continue with the next chapter called Love. In this chapter, Lewis's mother and father discovered that he is not at the lake like he should be. You're also going to notice that the Cobb's personality is going to come out as he babbles and babbles and babbles as he has been doing. So here we go. When Lewis's father and mother discovered that Lewis was missing, they felt awful. No other young swan had disappeared from the lakes, only Lewis. The question now arises, said the Cobb to his wife, whether or not I should go and look for your son. I am disinclined to leave these attractive lakes now in the fall of the year with winter coming. I have, in fact, been looking forward to this time of serenity and peace and the society of other waterfowl. I like the life here. There's another little matter to consider besides your personal comfort, said his wife. Has it ever occurred to you that we have no idea which direction Lewis went when he left? You don't know where he went any more than I do. If you were to start out looking for him, which way would you fly? Well, the Cobb said, in the last analysis, I believe I would go south. What do you mean in the last analysis, said the Swan impatiently. You haven't analyzed anything. Why do you say in the last analysis? And why do you pick south as the way to go looking for Lewis? There are other directions. There's north and east and west. There's northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. True, replied the Cobb. And there are all of those in between directions. North, northeast, east, southeast, west, southwest. That's north by east and east by north. There's south, southeast, a half east, and there's west by north, a half north. The directions a young swan could start off in almost any direction is just too numerous to think about. So it was decided that no search would be made. We're just going to have to sit here and wait and see what happens, said the Cobb. I feel sure Lewis will return in the fullness of time. Months and months went by. Winter came to the Red Rock Lakes. The nights were long and dark and cold. The days were short and bright and cold. Sometimes the wind blew, but the swans and geese and ducks were safe and happy. The warm springs that fed the lakes kept the ice from covering them. They were always in open places. There was plenty of food. Sometimes a man would arrive with a bag of grain and spread the grain where the birds could get it. Spring followed winter, summer followed spring. A year now went by. Then one morning, when Louie's grown-up brothers were playing a game of water polo, one of them looked up and saw a swan approaching in the sky. "Cuckoo!" cried the cygnet. He rushed to his father and mother and said, "Look, look, look!" All of the other birds on the lake turned and gazed up at the approaching swan. But what is that peculiar little object hanging around that swan's neck by a string? What is that? Wait and see, said his wife. Maybe it's a gift. Lewis looked down from the sky and spotted what looked like his family. When he was sure, he glided down and skidded to a stop. His mother rushed up and embraced him. His father arched his neck gracefully and raised his wings in greeting. Everyone shouted, "Cuckoo, cuckoo," and "Welcome back, Lewis." His family was overjoyed. He had been gone for a year and a half, almost 18 months. He looked older and handsomer. His feathers were pure white now instead of that dirty gray. Hanging by a cord around his neck was a small slate. Attached to the slate by a piece of string was a piece of chalk. When the family greetings were over, Lewis seized the chalk in his bill and wrote, "Hi there," on the slate. He held the slate out eagerly for all to see. The Cobb just stared at it. The cygnets just stared at it. They just stared and stared. Words on a slate meant nothing to them. They couldn't read. None of the members of his family had ever seen a slate before or a piece of chalk. Louis's attempts to greet his family were a failure. He felt as though he had wasted a year and a half by going to school to learn how to write. He felt keenly disappointed. And of course, he was still unable to speak. The words on the slate were all he could offer to his family. Finally, his father, the Cobb, spoke up. "Louis, my son," he began in his deep voice, "this is the day we have been waiting for, the day of your return to our home on the great Red Rock Lakes. Now no one can imagine the extent of our joy or the depth of our emotion at seeing you again. You who have been absent from our midst for so long in lands we know not of, in pursuit, we can only guess, at whatever. How good it is to see you. We hope you have enjoyed good health during the long time that you've been gone." "You've said that once already," said his wife. "You're repeating yourself." "Louis must be tired after his trip, no matter where he's been or what he's been up to." "Very true," said the cob, "but I must prolong my welcoming remarks just a little bit longer, for my curiosity is aroused by that odd little object Louis is wearing around his neck." "Well," said Louis's mother, "we're all interested in it naturally, but Louis can't explain it, so why are you going to bother? So just forget about it." Everyone agreed that that was a better idea. Louis swam to the shore, placed his slate and his chalk pencil under a bush, and took a bath. When he was through, he dipped the end of one wing in the water and sorrowfully rubbed out the words, "Hi there." Then he hung the slate around his neck again. It felt good to be home with his family, and his family had increased during the months he had spent away. There were now 6 new babies. Louis's father and mother had spent the summer on a trip to Canada, and while there, they had nested and hatched 6 more little cygnets, and in the fall they had all joined up again at the Red Rock Lakes in Montana. One day soon after Louis's return, the grain man stopped by with a sack of grain. Louis saw him and swam over. When the man spread the grain on the ground to feed the birds, Louis took off his slate and wrote, "Thank you very much." He held the slate up to the man, who appeared surprised. "Say," said the man, "you're quite a bird. When did you learn to write?" Louis erased the slate and wrote, "At school." "School," said the gray man. "What school?" "Public school," wrote Louis. "Mrs. Hammerbotham, my teacher, taught me." "Never heard of her," said the grain man, "but she must be a darn good teacher." "She is," wrote Louis. He was overjoyed to be carrying on a conversation with someone. He realized that even though the slate was no help with other birds, it was going to be very helpful with human beings. Wow, this made him feel a whole lot better. Sam Beaver had given Louis the slate as a goodbye present when he left the ranch. Sam had bought the slate and the chalk pencil with money he had saved. Louis decided he would always carry them with him, no matter where he went, wherever he was in the world. The gray man wondered whether he had been dreaming or whether he had really seen this swan write on a slate. He decided to say nothing about it, just in case somebody thought he might be crazy in the head. Well, for birds, spring is a time to find a mate. The warm, sweet airs of spring stir strange feelings in the young swans. The males began to notice the females. They show off in front of them. The females begin to notice the males too, but they pretend not to see them. They play coy, I guess you could say. They all act very interesting. Louis felt so different one day. He knew he must be in love, and he knew which bird he was in love with. Whenever he swam past her, he could feel his heart beat faster and faster and his mind full of thoughts of love. He thought he had never seen such a beautiful young swan before. She was a trifle smaller than the others, and she seemed to have a more graceful neck and more attractive ways than any of the other friends on the lake. Her name was Serena. He wished he could do something to attract her attention. He wanted her to be in love with him, but he was unable to tell her because he couldn't make a sound. He swam in circles around her and pumped his neck up and down, and he would make a great show of diving and staying down to prove he could hold his breath longer than any other bird. But the little female, she paid no attention to Louis. She pretended he didn't even exist. When Louis's mother found out that Louis was trying to get Serena, she hid behind some bulrushes and watched what was going on. She could tell that he was in love just by the way he was acting, and she saw that he was not having any success. Once in desperation, Louis swam up to Serena and made a bow. His slate, as usual, was around his neck. Taking the chalk pencil in his mouth, he wrote, "I love you" on the slate and showed it to her. Well, she stared at it for a few minutes, couldn't read, and swam away. She didn't know how to read, and although she rather liked the looks of the young cob, she thought he had something strange that was hanging around his neck, maybe because he was unable to say anything. A trumpeter swan that couldn't trumpet was a bust, as far as she was concerned. And I'm going to stop there.